The UBT-MNS alliance talks are almost in their final stages, or at least that is what the leaders from both the parties tell us. Now, we here at NDTV have very closely been following the developments with these alliance talks ever since they started. After the mention, of this alliance by Raj Thackeray in a podcast to Mahesh Manjrekar, and then a sort of a willingness that was shown by his cousin Uddhav Thackeray on the very same day when the podcast released. Now, it's been a few months since then, and this entire conversation has been topsy-turvy, right? We've seen that there have been moments when it seemed that the alliance will be finalized on that very day, and there have also been days where it felt like the alliance may not ever happen because, it's happened in the past where there have been talks about the alliance, but it never eventually materialized. But in the last few days, there have been certain events that have happened which are important for us to understand, keeping in mind not just the alliance but also the larger impact that it might have on the political landscape of the state. Sanjay Raut, a couple of days back, in his daily traditional press conference, said that the UBT-MNS alliance will not just restrict itself to Mumbai but will also extend to close by areas like Thane, Kalyan-Dombivali and Nashik. This becomes an important statement because, when you talk about the political goodwill and the electoral pull of the Thackerays, now I'm talking about Thackerays as a whole and not just in the, in the context of UBT or MNS, has primarily been in Mumbai and, Konkan region at best. We've seen that ever since the Shiv Sena came into being, that is in 1966, it's been close to 60 years since then, and yet the party's stronghold has only been in a limited part of the state, unlike what happened with the Bharatiya Janata Party, which came little later but was still able to make inroads to the deeper parts. In Vidarbha, thanks to their foundational or parent body RSS, and of course in the rural parts of Marathwada and Uttar Maharashtra as well. A testimony of that was the recently concluded Vidhan Sabha election here in the state. Now, when it comes to the alliance between the MNS and UBT in the four to five places that I mentioned earlier, how exactly will it fare for these parties, and is it really a major headache for the for the ruling dispensation in the state, that is the BJP and Shiv Sena primarily? I'm not saying NCP because their primary strength lies in in the western Maharashtra region and of course in few parts of Nashik as well, but primarily the Saffron alliance. Now, there have been a lot of events that are happening here in the state that have, for good or for bad, divided the people on the basis of, the basis of their ethnicity and on the basis of their language. And MNS has been at the forefront of these conversations for the longest possible time. What UBT has done, on the other hand, is that, since 2019, ever since it decided to part ways with the BJP, we've seen that the UBT has put conscious efforts to make sure that it does not restrict itself to just being a Marathi party, and also, takes efforts to make sure that it also gets some sort of support of the North Indian voter base, which is quite substantial here in the state. And the examples of it is the induction of several spokespersons from the North Indian communities and the representation that they gave to the party at the national level or in the national media. MNS, on the other hand, has completely refrained from this approach and has, did not seem to mind the fact that it was a completely Marathi-first party. Now, this alliance, might face this as one of the challenges. And, another example of that is an open letter that was written by Kishore Tiwari, a leader from the UBT, to Uddhav Thackeray, stating that such an alliance should not be formed because it will deter the chances of UBT, as far as the efforts of the party to get the North Indian votes are concerned. We're also seeing that more, places that I mentioned earlier, places that Sanjay Raut mentioned earlier, like Kalyan-Dombivali, Thane and Nashik. These are the places where UBT or erstwhile United Shiv Sena did have some sort of a stronghold back in the day. But in the last 1 year or so, we've seen massive amount of change and, leaders from UBT leaving the Thackeray camp and joining Shiv Sena. Now, of course, it's tough for the UBT to get back all of those leaders at once because in Mumbai alone, we know that close to 100 former corporators have changed their sides to the rival faction of Shiv Sena. As a counter to that, UBT is looking at forging this sort of an alliance in the non-Mumbai region so that they are at least able to get some sort of an assistance from MNS's foundation, even though it might be not as big as the Shiv Sena's foundation, but it's something, which is of course better than nothing. Now, the fact that it's some sort of an emotional alliance that is, or at least that is the way that it's been portrayed in front of the people of Maharashtra, the electoral test of this is yet to be formed. We've seen that the two parties have gone against each other on multiple occasions, although the ideological footprints of both of the, UBT and MNS are quite overlapping, but electorally they've never shown any signs of going together as compared to what is the case right now. So what exactly will be the turnout either in favor or against them electorally is something that we'll have to wait and watch out for. When we talk about the BJP and their approach, they've kept a very neutral stance towards it, right? They've maintained that the Thackeray brothers coming together is not going to deter the BJP. We don't really know about their opinions on it deterring the Mahayuti, but they speak for their party and say that the BJP has done enough work in the last few years to make sure that such kind of an alliance, which is timely and opportunistic, will not hamper their chances. But a major person or a major political player that might be looking at this entire development very closely is Eknath Shinde, for several factors. The very fact that Eknath Shinde is claiming his authority over Shiv Sena is Hindutva, and with which he's taking the help of late Balasaheb Thackeray by carrying his photos on all of the posters, by stating that the real Thackeray ideology is with Eknath Shinde. But if the Thackeray brothers come together and stand against Eknath Shinde, then it is going to be a challenging situation electorally for Eknath Shinde. And otherwise, we've also seen that Eknath Shinde and his party has been at bay by, from representing issues that have mattered to the Marathi people, or at least as has been portrayed by Shiv Sena UBT, then be it the matter of the meat ban on Independence Day in multiple municipal corporations. Both UBT and MNS spoke very openly about it, but Shinde Sena did not really speak as openly as it was expected, according to the opposition. And more importantly, in the entire language debate, Shinde Sena was in a bit of fix, especially given the fact that the primary education minister comes from their party, and it was seen as the BJP is using Shinde Sena to further their agenda of making Hindi as a default language, is what the opposition said. Now, has that actually had any sort of an electoral deterrence on the people as far as their trust in Shinde Sena is concerned, is something that we'll have to wait and watch out for when the civic polls will take place either later this year or next year. With camera person Rajendra Dyakar, this is Anuj reporting for NDTV from Mumbai.